Seto Kaiba, the man, the myth, the legend. Few have impacted the world of dueling like this fan-favorite anti-hero. It's been 20 years since his heyday as the world champion, and the game has changed tremendously in that time. So today, we're going to take a look at a modern deck profile for this beloved character, exploring the cards that he might use if he were still dueling today. But first, a quick word about today's sponsor. Are you aware that back in August, there was a massive data leak in which almost every single United States address and social security number was stolen? More than 2.9 billion personal records were taken from national public data, putting basically everyone at risk for identity theft, fraud, or even personal stalking as that data continues to find its way onto the internet, which is why I'm really excited to be teaming up with Aura. Aura monitors the web for any of your leaked information, monitors your credit accounts for suspicious activity, and automatically files takedown requests of your data from all across the web. It's really easy to set up and has everything you need to browse the internet safely, so you don't have to download several different apps to get things like parental controls, antivirus, ID theft and transaction monitoring, and so much more. You get everything at one affordable price, and if you sign up right now using my personal link, Aura will give you a 14-day free trial. Go to my sponsor link at aura.com/spellcommander91 to get a 14-day free trial to see if your personal information has been compromised. I'll bet you money that Seto Kaiba doesn't leave his data out there for anyone to use against him, and neither should you. So check out Aura today, and now, back to the video. To absolutely no one's surprise, the first three cards in this lineup will be Kaiba's signature Blue Eyes White Dragons. Bonded across time and space, Kaiba and the spirit of his beloved dragon are a package deal, and you'll have a hard time prying these cards from his cold, dead hands. These will be the centerpiece to a number of win condition strategies in this profile. And for the days when the OG dragons aren't enough to get the job done, we have 4 additional Blue Eyes dragons, with those being Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon, the Blue Eyes Abyss Dragon, the hilariously meta Blue Eyes Jet Dragon, and the Dragon Spirit of White. Alternative Dragon retains the original Blue Eyes attack and defense stats, but can only be summoned by revealing a Blue Eyes White Dragon card in your hand. Its name becomes Blue Eyes White Dragon on the field or in the graveyard, making it hot swappable for a number of combos, and, once per turn, it can target one enemy monster and automatically destroy it instead of attacking. Blue Eyes Abyss Dragon has 3 very useful once per turn effects, but they can only be activated if you have a Blue Eyes White Dragon on the field. It can add a ritual spell or polymerization card to the hand when it's special summoned, and, during its end phase, it can add a level 8 or higher dragon to the hand. It can also be banished from the grave to boost all dragon monsters on its owner's field by 1,000 attack points. Blue Eyes Jet Dragon protects other cards on Kaiba's field from being destroyed by card effects. Its other effects are all once per turn and require a Blue Eyes White Dragon to already be on the field or in the graveyard to use. It can be special summoned from the hand or grave when another card on the field is destroyed by battle or by effect, and if this card battles, its owner can send one enemy card back to the hand. The Dragon Spirit of White, despite not having Blue Eyes in its name, is always treated as a Blue Eyes card and as a normal monster when it's in the hand or in the grave. When it's summoned, you can banish an enemy spell or trap that's on the field, and if your opponent controls a monster, this card can activate a quick effect to tribute itself to summon Blue Eyes White Dragon. We've also got the 2 Blue Eyes Ritual monsters, Blue Eyes Chaos Dragon and Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon, both of which are summoned using the Chaos Form Ritual spell, and neither of which can be targeted by any card effects or destroyed by enemy card effects. Chaos Dragon's other effects are only available if Blue Eyes White Dragon was used as part of its summoning tributes, in which case it can change the battle position of your enemy's monsters and reduce their attack and defense points to 0 when it attacks them. And, if you did swap enemy monster positions, it can inflict piercing damage for the rest of the turn. So really recommended that you use Blue Eyes to summon this guy. Chaos Max Dragon doesn't require any specific tributes to use its effects. In addition to its immunities, it can just inflict double piercing damage whenever it battles. And to close out the dragons in this family, we have Deep Eyes White Dragon, which can be special summoned from the hand if a Blue Eyes monster you control is destroyed when you already have another dragon monster in your grave. If it's special summoned this way, it burns the enemy for 600 points of damage for each dragon in its user's grave, and, on a related note, it inherits the attack and defense stats of a single dragon in the grave when it's on the field. If this card is destroyed, it takes all enemy monsters with it. And that does it for our Blue Eyes related dragons. Next, we have a few retrains of monsters from back in the day. Kaiba used to support his Blue Eyes cards with monsters like Lord of Dragons and Kaiser Seahorse, which have now been upgraded to Dictator of Dragons and Neo Kaiser Seahorse. Dictator of Dragons can be special summoned by sending a Blue Eyes White Dragon from the deck or the hand to your grave. While in the field, it can let you discard a Blue Eyes White Dragon to special summon another Blue Eyes monster in your grave. And if you have a Blue Eyes monster on your field, the Good Dictator lets you decide which monsters your opponent can attack for them. Neo Kaiser Seahorse is our first tuner in the deck, and it can be special summoned if you already control Blue Eyes White Dragon and can decrease the level of a light attribute tuner monster you control by 1. If it goes from the field to the grave, you can send a Blue Eyes monster, or a monster that mentions Blue Eyes, from the deck to the graveyard. And that brings us to a series of level 1 tuner monsters. First up, we have the Maiden of White, the Master with Eyes of Blue, and the Sage with Eyes of Blue. Maiden of White, who is based on Kisara, the woman whose spirit housed the white dragon that bonded with Kaiba's ancient ancestor in ye olde times, can be sent from the hand or the field to the grave to play the card True Light from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Maiden of White can also be special summoned from the grave if Blue Eyes White Dragon is special summoned while it's there. And, when this card is targeted by effect or battle, it can special summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon or a level 1 light attribute tuner monster from the grave once per turn. Master with Eyes of Blue can add a level 1 light attribute tuner from the grave to the hand when it's normal summoned. It can also be shuffled from the grave back into the deck to tribute an effect monster on your field in exchange for a Blue Eyes monster in your grave. Similarly, Sage with Eyes of Blue lets you add a level 1 light attribute tuner to your hand from the deck when it's normal summoned, and can be discarded to tribute an effect monster in order to summon a Blue Eyes monster from your deck. Next up, we have the White Stone of Legend and the White Stone of Ancients. The Stone of Legend can add a Blue Eyes White Dragon from the deck to the hand when it's sent to the grave, while the Stone of Ancients can be used to special summon a Blue Eyes monster from the deck on the turn that it goes to the graveyard. It can also be banished from the grave to add a Blue Eyes monster in the grave back to the hand. Effect Veiler, whose stat lineup makes it a useful companion to this archetype, is another useful level 1 light attribute tuner that can be discarded to negate the effects of an enemy monster for the rest of the turn. And that brings us to Kaiba's secondary monster archetype, the XYZ Union monsters, with X Head Cannon, Y Dragon Head, and Z Metal Tank returning from the old days, but also being supplemented with X Cross Cannon, Y Dragon Yearhead, and Z Zillion Tank, which make up a secondary set of Union monsters to support the first. X Cross Cannon can be special summoned from the hand if you already control a light attribute fusion or union monster, and then it can equip itself with another light union monster, basically serving as its own setup and payoff for an equip combo. Y Dragon Yearhead can equip a level 4 light machine monster to itself from the hand or the graveyard when it's special summoned. Or, once per turn, you can equip or unequip this monster to another machine card on your field. If this card is equipped to another monster that would be destroyed, Y Dragon Yearhead is destroyed instead. And Z Zillion Tank has an almost identical effect, but rather than equipping a monster from the hand or the grave, it has the ability to equip a banished level 4 monster instead. All three of these cards share an effect that when they activate their primary effect, you are restricted from summoning anything but light attribute monsters from your extra deck for the rest of the turn. And last, we have Chaos Emperor, the Dragon of Armageddon, which is Kaiba's one and only Pendulum monster, though we won't be using it for any Pendulum summoning because it doesn't have a partner. Its primary effect requires that it be summoned from the hand or the extra deck by banishing one light and one dark attribute monster from the grave. You can pay half of your life points to destroy cards on your field, and then destroy the same number of cards on your opponent's field and burn them for 300 points of damage for each one, though you can't use this effect to destroy cards in the extra monster zones. If Chaos Emperor, the Dragon of Armageddon, leaves the field, it returns to the bottom of the deck instead of going to the graveyard. Then its Pendulum effect, which is still useful even without a partner, lets you pay 1,000 life points to destroy itself and add a banished dragon monster to your hand. Moving on to spell cards, we have some obvious ones like Polymerization and the Chaos Form Ritual spell, which facilitate fusion and ritual summoning respectively. Ultimate Fusion is a more specific fusion card, allowing you to fusion summon a monster that requires Blue Eyes White Dragon or Ultimate Dragon as material by shuffling the required monsters back into the deck from the hand, field, or graveyard, and, as a bonus, you can destroy a face-up enemy card for every Blue Eyes White Dragon or Ultimate Dragon that was used as material with this card. Then we have several Blue Eyes support cards, like Burst Stream of Destruction, the Melody of Awakening Dragon, Bingo Machine Go, and the Mausoleum of White. Burst Stream of Destruction simply lets you trade Blue Eyes White Dragon's attack one turn in exchange for destroying all enemy monsters on their field. The Melody of Awakening Dragon lets you discard one card to add 2 dragons with 3,000 or fewer attack points or 2,500 or fewer defense points to your hand. Bingo Machine Go lets you reveal 3 Blue Eyes related cards from your deck, and then your opponent randomly chooses one to add to your hand, with the other 2 shuffling back into your deck. And Mausoleum of White is a field spell that lets you summon a level 1 light attribute tuner monster in addition to your usual normal summon each turn. It also lets you discard a normal monster from the hand or deck to the graveyard in order to boost a monster on your field's attack and defense points by 100 points for each of the discarded monster's levels until the end of the turn. This card can also be banished from the grave to add one Burst Stream of Destruction card from the deck to the hand. We also have 2 brand new Blue Eye support spells, so new in fact that they're currently exclusive to the OCG, but will be released to the TCG next month in the Blue Eyes White Destiny structure deck. Say hello to Saga of the Blue-Eyed Dragon and Prayers with Eyes of Blue. Saga of the Blue-Eyed Dragon allows you to special summon a Blue Eyes monster from the deck, graveyard, or banish zone in defense position, so long as you don't already control a Blue Eyes White Dragon. You can only summon dragon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn after using this card. And you can banish this card from the grave to fusion summon a monster that requires a Blue Eyes monster as material. Prayers with Eyes of Blue lets you add a level 1 light attribute tuner monster and a spell or trap that mentions Blue Eyes White Dragon to your hand. This card can then be banished from the grave to equip one Blue Eyes White Dragon you control with another Blue Eyes monster from the extra deck, giving it 400 extra attack points. Return of the Dragon Lords is a more generic piece of dragon support, allowing you to target a level 7 or 8 dragon monster in the grave and special summon it. Then, when this card is in the grave, it can be banished to protect a dragon monster on your field from being destroyed. And for our one piece of Union monster spell support, we have Union Activation. This card lets you send a light attribute normal or Union Machine monster from the hand or deck to the grave to add a monster with the same attack but different name from the deck to your hand. So essentially, you can trade out X Head Cannon, Y Dragon Head, or Z Metal Tank for X Cross Cannon, Y Dragon Yearhead, or Z Zillion Tank respectively, or vice versa. Also, if you special summon 3 light machine monsters at the same time while this card is in your grave, you can add one monster with 3,000 or more attack from the deck to the hand and normal summon it, which kind of acts like a piece of unofficial Blue Eye support. And that just leaves us with a few traps. Majesty with Dragons of White allows you to reveal up to 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons from your hand, field, or graveyard, then destroy that many cards on your opponent's field. This card can be banished to ritual summon a monster in your hand by tributing Blue Eyes White Dragons from your hand or field. True Light is a continuous trap that prevents your enemy from targeting Blue Eyes White Dragons you control with card effects. It also destroys all of your monsters when it's sent from the field to the grave. But, once per turn, you can either special summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon from the hand or grave, or you can set one spell or trap that mentions Blue Eyes White Dragon on your field. The Ultimate Creature of Destruction lets you target a Blue Eyes monster you control and grant it immunity from battle and card effects, and it automatically destroys any monster it battles after the damage step. This card can also be set on your field from the graveyard when you summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon, but it's banished when it leaves the field for the second time. And last, for the main deck, we have Union Scramble, which special summons up to 3 banished light, normal, or Union Machine monsters on your field. During either player's turn, this card can be banished from the grave to return a banished normal or Union Light Machine monster to your hand, though this can't occur on the same turn that this card ends up in the graveyard. And that does it for our main deck. Moving on to the side deck, this is where we're going to flesh out the Union Machine strategy and pay our respects to the Divine. As far as the machines go, we've got the ABC monsters, A. Assault Core, B. Buster Drake, and C. Crush Wyvern. All 3 of these cards share the effect that they can either equip themselves to a light machine monster or unequip themselves in order to be special summoned, and each will be destroyed in place of the monster that they're equipped to. Each one also grants a special immunity to the monster that it's equipped to, and supports you with 1 additional Union monster when they leave the field. A. Assault Core protects it from monster effects and lets you recover a Union monster from the grave when it leaves the field. B. Buster Drake protects it from spell effects and lets you add a Union monster from the deck to the hand when it goes to the grave. And C. Crush Wyvern protects it from traps and lets you special summon a Union monster in your hand when it goes to the grave. These 3 monsters can all combine to form ABC Dragon Buster, which is done by banishing the 3 component monsters from the field and does not require polymerization. Once per turn, this monster lets you discard once to banish another card on the field. During your opponent's turn, you can banish this monster to special summon 3 light attribute machine Union monsters, so essentially, it can trade itself out to bring back its own material monsters, or maybe another Union Fusion monster's banished materials if you've already set that up. And, combining the Union monsters in both the main and the side decks, we have A to Z Dragon Buster Cannon, which is summoned by banishing ABC Dragon Buster and XYZ Dragon Cannon, a card that we'll get to shortly in the extra deck. This card allows you to discard in order to negate and destroy enemy spells, traps, or monster effects. And you can also banish this monster to unbanish its material monsters back to the field. Next up, we have 2 more Union monsters, Union Pilot and Union Driver. Like the ABC Union monsters, these two can equip to other monsters and will be destroyed in their place if they lose a battle or are destroyed by card effects. When Union Pilot is acting as an equipped spell card, it can return to the hand in order to unbanish a Union monster and equip it instead, at which point Pilot can be special summoned back to the field. And Driver can be banished from the spell zone to equip a level 4 or lower Union Machine monster in the deck to a card that it was equipped to instead. Union Hanger is a field spell that lets you add a light attribute Machine Union monster from the deck to the hand. Then, once per turn, if a monster meeting that description is summoned to your field, you can equip it with another light attribute Machine Union monster with a different name in your deck. And that brings us to the one, the only, Obelisk the Tormentor. Now true enough, Kaiba did lose this card following the Battle City tournament, and the card itself no longer exists following the Pharaoh's departure to the afterlife. But that didn't stop old Moneybags from defying fate and calling him out during the Dark Side of Dimensions film anyways, so here he is. This Egyptian god requires 3 tributes to summon. Its summoning can't be negated, and card effects can't be activated in response to its summoning. It cannot be targeted with card effects while it's on the field, and if it's special summoned, it's sent to the grave at the end phase. But while it's on the field, you can tribute 2 monsters in order to destroy all enemy monsters on the field, though it can't attack the turn that this effect is activated. Then we have some Obelisk-specific support, such as the Breaking Ruin of God, Soul Crossing, Fist of Fate, Soul Energy Max, and Magical Trick Mirror. The Breaking Ruin of God is a quick play spell card that cannot be negated. It allows you to special summon Obelisk the Tormentor from your hand or grave, and if you do, it's immune to enemy card effects for the rest of the turn. If you use Obelisk's 2-card tribute effect to destroy your enemy's monsters, you can banish this card from the grave in order to banish all enemy monsters in their graveyard and burn them for 500 points of damage for each one. Soul Crossing is another quick play card that lets you tribute summon a Divine Beast monster, which in this case would have to be Obelisk. But you can use your opponent's monsters to do it. If you use them, however, you can only activate 1 card or effect besides your god monster's effects until the end of your next turn. Fist of Fate is yet another quick play spell and cannot be negated. If you control Obelisk, you can negate and destroy 1 enemy effect monster and negate the effects of all other copies of that monster that your opponent currently controls. If you use this card during your own main phase, it will also destroy all enemy spells and traps currently on their field. Soul Energy Max is a trap card that lets you tribute 2 other monsters on your field if you already control Obelisk. This destroys all of your enemy monsters and burns them for 4,000 points of damage. This card can be banished from the grave to add Obelisk from the deck or the grave to the hand, and then normal summon it. And Magical Trick Mirror lets you set a spell card in your opponent's grave to your field when they declare an attack. This card can then be banished from the grave in order to send Monster Reborn from your hand or field to the grave so that you can special summon Obelisk the Tormentor from the grave in defense position. If this card effect was activated during your opponent's turn, all of their monsters are forced to attack your defense position Obelisk. And of course, that necessitates the final card in Kaiba's side deck, Monster Reborn. Monster Reborn is... Look, we both know what this card does. I'm not going to waste your time or mine explaining what it does. In fact, I've already probably wasted more time saying that I'm not going to explain it than it would have taken to actually explain it, so now I really don't have time to explain that it just lets you bring back a monster from either graveyard on your side of the field. Moving on to the extra deck, we've got his Union Machine Fusion monsters, with those being XYZ Dragon Cannon and XYZ Hyper Dragon Cannon. XYZ Dragon Cannon is fusion summoned by banishing X Head Cannon, Y Dragon Head, and Z Metal Tank from the field, no need to use polymerization. This monster allows you to discard a card in order to destroy 1 enemy card. Very similarly, XYZ Hyper Dragon Cannon is summoned in the exact same way, but by using X Cross Cannon, Y Dragon Yearhead, and Z Zillion Tank instead, and it has the exact same effect as the regular XYZ Dragon Cannon. But it also has an additional effect that lets you reveal a level 8 Light Machine Fusion monster in your extra deck, in other words, the original XYZ Dragon Cannon, and special summon its materials from the graveyard or from banishment. Now, our next card is an interesting one. Back in the day, Kaiba used to run a spell card called Enemy Controller. However, it has since been retrained as a fusion monster called Union Controller, which requires any light attribute Union Machine monster to fuse with either Y Dragon Yearhead or Z Zillion Tank. If this card is special summoned from the extra deck, you can add 1 spell or trap from your deck to your hand that mentions a Union monster in its text. You can only use this effect of Union Controller once per turn. Also once per turn, during your main phase, you can special summon 1 Light Machine Normal or Union monster from your hand. Then we have a few non-archetypal specific extra deck monsters, such as Lightstorm Dragon, the Zombie Vampire, and Steel Star Regulator. The Lightstorm Dragon is a level 9 synchro monster that can target spells and traps on the field up to the number of normal monsters in your graveyard plus 1 and destroy them. If this card is destroyed, you can set a spell or trap from your grave, but it can't be activated without a normal monster on your field.
The Zombie Vampire is a rank 8 Xyz monster. If you use a monster or monsters with a level that is owned by your opponent for the Xyz summon of this card, you can treat it as a level 8 monster. Neither player can target this card with effects of a special summoned monster, except those special summoned from the graveyard. You can detach one Xyz material from this card, and each player sends 4 cards from the top of their deck to the graveyard. And, if any of those were monsters that were sent to the graveyard by this effect, you can special summon one of those monsters to your field.
And then Steelstar Regulator is a Link 3 monster requiring 3 non-Link monsters as material. It gains 100 attack points for each of the levels or ranks of the monsters used to summon it. It can target a non-Link monster with equal or fewer attack points than it has and destroy it. And, if this monster was summoned using an Xyz monster as material, it will burn the enemy for half of that monster's attack points and damage. And that brings us to the many, many Blue Eyes extra deck monsters that Kaiba would be running these days. First up, we have the Spirit with Eyes of Blue. It's a Link 1 monster that requires a single level 4 or lower dragon or spellcaster as material. Its effects are all once per turn. When it's Link summoned, you can add Mausoleum of White from the deck to your hand or graveyard. You can also tribute this card to summon one Blue Eyes monster from the hand or the grave, but it can't attack and its effects are negated. Then we have Blue Eyes Twin Burst Dragon and Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon. Twin Burst Dragon uses 2 Blue Eyes White Dragons as materials, and it can be fusion summoned normally using a polymerization card, or it can be special summoned by sending its materials from the field to the graveyard. It can't be destroyed by battle, and it can attack 2 monsters each turn. If it attacks a monster that isn't destroyed by that battle, that monster can then be banished at the end of the battle. Tyrant Dragon, on the other hand, uses Blue Eyes White Dragon and another dragon monster as its materials. Like Twin Burst Dragon, it can be fusion summoned normally, or it has a special summoning requirement, in which you tribute a Blue Eyes White Dragon that has another fusion monster equipped to it. This card isn't affected by trap cards or effects, and it can attack every monster on your opponent's field each turn. Also, if it battled, it can set a trap card from your grave to the field. Then we have all the awesome new summoning method Blue Eyes cards we all wish we could see Kaiba use, with those being Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon, Indigo Eyes Silver Dragon, and Azure Eyes Silver Dragon. Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon is a level 9 synchro monster that requires a tuner and 1 or more Blue Eyes monsters to summon. Its effect prevents both players from summoning 2 or more monsters at a time. It can also negate effects from the graveyard, and it can be tributed to special summon a light attribute dragon synchro monster in defense mode, except for another copy of itself. But that card is destroyed at the end of the turn. Indigo Eyes Silver Dragon is a level 8 Xyz monster that requires 2 materials to summon. It can't make direct attacks unless it has a normal type monster attached to it as material. If this card is Xyz summoned, you can negate the effects of all face-up cards your opponent currently controls. You can detach 1 material from this card, then target 1 normal monster in your graveyard or banishment zone, and special summon it, and if you do, it gains 1,000 attack points. And Azure Eyes Silver Dragon is another level 9 synchro monster that requires a tuner and 1 or more normal monster to summon. If it's special summoned, neither player can target or destroy your dragon monsters with card effects for the rest of the turn. You can also special summon a normal monster in your grave during each of your standby phases. And that brings us to the Ultimate Dragon fusions, with those being Blue Eyes Alternative Ultimate Dragon and Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. Both of these monsters require 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons to be summoned. Alternative Dragon can't be targeted or destroyed by enemy card effects. It can also just destroy 1 enemy card per turn, unless you used a Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon as one of its materials, in which case it can destroy 3 enemy cards instead. Either way, it can't make direct attacks on the same turn that it activates its destruction effect. Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon can make an extra attack if it's your only face-up card, and you tribute a Blue Eyes Fusion monster in your extra deck. This effect can be used twice per turn, for a total of 3 attacks. This monster can also be banished from the grave to negate and destroy a card that targets a Blue Eyes monster you control. And for the last Ultimate Dragon, we have the brand spanking new Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon, a level 12 synchro that requires 2 tuners and a Blue Eyes monster as materials. Once per turn, this boss monster can negate a card or effect activation and give itself 1,000 extra attack points until the end of the turn. When it's destroyed, it can special summon a light dragon monster from the grave, except for itself. But what do you think of the cards in this modern Kaiba deck profile? Are these the cards he'd use, or am I way off base? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. A huge shout out to Wham Bam Duel for helping me with this deck profile. If you want to use it for yourself, it is available on YGO Pro, and you can view a guide on how to use it most effectively on his channel. Links below in the description. Another very special thank you to Aura for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to check my special download link below in the description. Check back next week for another modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile. Hit the subscribe bell thing if you want to see that, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye!